America's fields were once seen as a symbol of prosperity, security, and endless harvests. But today, a troubling silence hangs over many farms. Corn sits unpicked in the fields, vegetables rot under the sun, and fruit trees are dying of thirst while more and more farmers turn off their machinery. They aren't leaving because they're afraid of hard work. They're leaving because every new planting has become a financial risk, and one more harvest could drive their families into total ruin. While American farmers sell their land or simply stop planting, something entirely different is happening north of the border. Canada is expanding its production, winning new international contracts, and taking over markets that were dominated by the United States for decades. Billions are flowing into Canada, while entire rural communities in America fight for their future. But which four states are already teetering on the edge? What happens when California loses its water, Texas can't find workers, Iowa's family farms vanish, and Arizona's vegetables go unharvested? Stay with us until the end, because the last state shows just how quickly a crisis in the field can end up right in your grocery store. 1. California. For decades, California was considered America's garden. In its fertile valleys, grapes, oranges, peaches, and almonds grew in quantities that fed millions. But today, more and more fruit trees stand dry in the sun. It's not because farmers have given up on their work, but because water and energy have become so expensive that even a good harvest barely turns a profit. In the Central Valley, electricity costs for irrigation systems have skyrocketed in a short amount of time. Some farmers have to shut off their pumps mid-season and watch helplessly as blossoms fall, fruit withers, and entire orchards slowly die. At the same time, many operations aren't allowed to drill new wells, even when their existing water sources run dry. For families who have worked this land for generations, it feels like they're losing control over their own future. But while Californian farmers fight for every drop of water, grocery store shelves are filling up with cheaper imports. Avocados from Mexico, apples from New Zealand, and kiwis from Chile often cost less than fruit grown right in the backyard. Consumers reach for the cheaper goods because they too are suffering under rising prices. As a result, Californian products are disappearing bit by bit from American dinner tables, even though they're grown on American soil. On top of that, there are new regulations, higher costs, and complaints about machine noise, dust, or smells. Farmers who were there long before the new housing developments suddenly feel like strangers on their own land. Some are selling, others are letting their fields lie fallow. And that's exactly where the real danger begins. If even California loses its fruit farmers, who will provide America with fresh fruit? And how long will it take for a crisis in the field to become a crisis at the checkout counter? 2. Texas was long considered an unshakable fortress of American agriculture. More than 250,000 farms provided beef, grain, cotton, and vegetables for millions of households. But today, harvesting machines are falling silent in more and more regions. In some fields, crops are left standing because no workers are coming. Stables are short-staffed, orders are being canceled, and small family operations are losing in just a few weeks what they built over decades. A large part of Texan agriculture depends on immigrants. They pick fruit, milk cows, clean stables, and take on jobs for which there are hardly enough local workers left. Since increased checks have made many workers feel insecure or driven them away, farm owners suddenly find themselves alone facing massive acreages. Those who want to hire legal seasonal workers have to bear high costs for wages, housing, insurance, and travel. For smaller operations, a single season can mean the financial end. At the same time, the prices for fertilizer, fuel, and water are rising. Especially in dry regions, every drop becomes an economic risk. When the harvest fails, it's not just the farmers who lose. Village shops close, schools cut programs, and rural clinics can hardly find staff. A dying farm often takes an entire community down with it. While Texas struggles with labor, water, and affordable production, Canada is winning new contracts in Mexico, Japan, and Europe. International buyers increasingly prefer stable deliveries and predictable prices. This means Texas isn't just losing harvests, but also markets that were considered secure for decades. If even one of America's largest agricultural states can no longer keep its farmers, who is supposed to fill the gap? And what happens when Texas one day has to import not just food, but the hope of its own self-sufficiency? 3. Iowa. Iowa was never just a state full of corn and soybean fields. For many Americans, it was the heart of the traditional family farm. Here, children learned from a young age how to operate machinery, care for animals, and respect the soil. The land wasn't just property, it was a legacy passed down from grandparents to parents and finally to the next generation. But that very legacy is now starting to shatter. Persistent rain, unusually cold months, and plant diseases have massively disrupted cultivation. Farmers were often left with only a few suitable days to work their fields. At the same time, prices for corn and soybeans dropped, while fertilizer, fuel, machinery, and loans remained significantly more expensive. Many farmers today are working harder than ever, and yet losing money with every harvest. As a result, more and more families are facing a decision that would have been unthinkable in the past. Do they take out another loan and risk everything? Or do they sell the land that has carried their name for generations? However, when a farm is sold, it's not just a plot of land that disappears from the map. Repair shops, small businesses, schools, and entire village communities lose their economic foundation as well. The deepest crisis often remains invisible. It shows up in the silence at the dinner table when a father has to explain to his son that there might not be a field left next year. It shows up in empty cooperative meetings, at abandoned farmers markets, and in families who no longer talk about the next harvest, but only about debt and saying goodbye. While Iowa loses its family farms, Canada is increasing exports of the exact products this state was once famous for. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are strengthening their positions in grain, corn, and soybeans. At the same time, Canada is attracting experienced farmers with better prospects and new agricultural programs. Some American families are already selling their farms and considering starting over north of the border. And that raises a terrifying question. If even the people born for farming are leaving Iowa, who will work these fields in the future? Large corporations, foreign investors, or in the end, no one at all? Perhaps Iowa isn't just losing its farms. Perhaps America is losing the right to decide for itself where its food comes from. 4. Arizona. Arizona provides a large portion of the fresh vegetables for the United States during the winter. Yuma, in particular, is considered an indispensable center for lettuce, tomatoes, and cucumbers. But today, entire fields there lie untouched under the scorching sun. The plants are ready for harvest, but no one is coming to pick them. Within a few days, valuable food turns into rotting waste. The reason isn't a lack of demand. It's the lack of people to do the work. Stepped-up enforcement and the fear of sudden raids have driven many farm workers out of the region. Even employees with valid papers and American citizens are pulling back because they no longer feel safe or respected. For farmers, every missing worker triggers a chain reaction. Crops are left behind, packing plants stop their lines, and supply contracts with supermarkets are canceled. But the labor shortage is only half of the catastrophe. At the same time, water is becoming increasingly scarce in Arizona. Many operations are prohibited from drilling new wells, while the Colorado River provides less water and stricter irrigation limits are put in place. A farmer can have seeds, machinery, and buyers, but without enough water, he still loses everything. When fewer vegetables are harvested in Arizona, families far from the state soon feel it too. Prices rise, certain products go missing, and supermarkets become more dependent on imports. Meanwhile, Canada is specifically recruiting experienced workers from vegetable farming, greenhouses, and the poultry industry. What Arizona loses, Canada turns into new production power. Arizona shows more clearly than any other state how quickly agriculture can collapse when it loses both workers and water at the same time. And when America's most important winter vegetables rot in the fields, while Canada takes over new markets, only one question remains. How much longer until the crisis is no longer just visible on the farms, but directly on every plate? California is losing water and sales markets. Texas is losing labor and entire rural communities. Iowa is losing its family farms, and with them, a piece of American identity. Arizona is losing the people who harvest, and at the same time, the water that keeps its fields alive. 4 states, 4 different crises. But in the end, they all lead to the same dangerous development. America is slowly losing control over its own food supply. While American farmers turn off their machines, sell their fields, or let their harvests rot, Canada isn't waiting around. It's expanding warehouses, improving transport routes, hedging prices, and winning the very international contracts that used to go to the United States as a matter of course. What means loss and despair for American farm families is becoming a multi-billion-dollar economic opportunity for Canada. But the real danger isn't just seen in abandoned fields. It's already reaching the supermarkets, the prices, and the choices on the plates of American families. If more and more food has to be imported, the supply suddenly depends on exchange rates, trade conflicts, and the political decisions of other countries. A country can be rich, modern, and militarily strong. But how independent is it really if it can no longer reliably feed itself? Perhaps the collapse of an agricultural power doesn't begin with empty shelves. Perhaps it begins much earlier, with a farmer turning off his tractor engine for the last time, with a family selling its land, with a field that no one plants anymore, and with a nation that only realizes what it has lost when other countries have long since taken its place. What do you think? Can America still save its agriculture, or has Canada already taken the decisive advantage? Write your opinion in the comments. If you want to learn more about the developments changing our food supply and our future, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.